So hello again to everyone who is joining us today. Welcome to another RCC Roundtable. We have some wonderful guests here with us today. So today our topic is all about building resilience and working with survivors. So I'll let these beautiful ladies introduce themselves, and we'll start with Miss Anna.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Anna Woodham. I'm a rape crisis advocate here at Lifelines. I'm also a medical student at the University of South Alabama.
Welcome, Miss Anna.
Hi, I'm Katrina Kennedy, victim advocate with Lifelines Counseling Services, and I'm just happy to be here.
Yes, ma'am. Katrina is a seasoned advocate. So she has been in this field for quite a while, and we're so happy to have her still on the team, and we are also happy to have Anna on the team. So we're just going to jump right in. So today, again, building resilience and working with sexual assault survivors. So ladies, what would you say, what does resilience look like and feel like for you? And anybody can jump in.
I know that for me, what resilience really feels like to me is just keeping going when I really don't want to. And I feel like nothing's moving. And no matter what I do, I feel like I'm not gaining traction or nothing's really working in my favor. It's just keeping going and working for a different outcome, knowing that eventually something will move, even the small steps start to add up. And so just keeping that kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, like it will, something one day will get better. It will go my
way. Okay.
I can kind of agree with what Anna is saying. Actually, I agree wholeheartedly. But what it looks like for me is just pushing through, no matter, what the circumstance is, my ultimate goal is just to push through.
Yeah.
And I think after I make it through it, it's just like, oh, I made it through this, or I made it through that. So yeah, it's just like just pushing through.
Yeah, being able to push through, being able to bounce back, however that may look. And I think resilience has a lot to do with your mindset.
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. What frame of mind are you in? Are you where you need to be able to bounce back or to push through? Because I know sometimes if we're dealing with a lot of personal things, sometimes it's a little harder for us to push through and get to that next level. What do you ladies think?
I agree wholeheartedly. One thing I would like to remember is everyone's end result is not going to be the same. So I try to remember that what I push through may not be fathomable for you or the next person who's trying to push through. Right. So I try to keep that in the forefront of my mind, saying, okay, well, yeah, that's my ultimate goal, but what does that look like for the next person?
Right.
And it is a complete mindset. And it's something that you really have to grow into, I would say through experiences or, trials and tribulations, if you will. You gain more of a positive mindset when you do push through.
Yeah.
And then the mindset also has to be something that you really want to do. And not everyone has that goal, right? Because you think about it, we're all of different types of ages and backgrounds and things of that nature. So what looks like a push through for me may not be the same for the next person. So you have to kind of get your mind, I think we have to be very considerate of other people's mindsets when it comes to building resilience.
Right. I agree. Anything to add to that, Anna?
Yeah, I think I agree wholeheartedly. And I think it really comes back to our society's view on success and failure, because a lot of times we're driven by the success and failure, and we have such a definition of what we think that is. And just really learning to accept that success doesn't mean, that you get what you wanted in the beginning. It doesn't mean that you get the job or anything. It can mean bouncing back. It can mean giving yourself the ability and the room to breathe. If you don't feel like you're in the mindset to bounce back, you don't have to in that moment. And that's not a failure. That's just, accepting where you're at and then learning to grow within it.
That's really good. That's something to really.
Yeah, go ahead, Katrina.
I was just saying that's something to really just kind of put even underneath my belt, right?
Mm-hmm.
It speaks volume what you're saying, Anna. And when you think about just what building resilience means, a lot of people aren't really understanding that that's what they're doing.
Right.
Some people are doing something and it's just a matter of just trying to cope. It's not necessarily a definition for them that they're familiar with.
Right.
So that's really good. I'm gonna have to hold on to that one. I may write that down. If you hear it again, Anna, you'll know that it came from me, and that you got it back.
Right. Yeah. And, when we're talking about building resilience, someone, in Anna's position who is a medical student and an advocate, I'm sure that somewhere along the way, you have had to kind of learn how to build that resilience and be okay with where you are, because that's a full plate and then some.
Oh yeah. And it's like I said, it's learning to keep your eye kind of on the goal and realizing it's not always going to go the way you plan it, because we can't plan for everything.
Nope.
And sometimes it just feels like nothing's moving, nothing's happening in your favor. You're just kind of stagnant. And I think what I've really learned about myself is that's okay. Just because I can't see things moving doesn't mean that they aren't moving. And the small steps, they do add up. Right. Eventually you'll get there. You'll get through it. You're just in the process of going through it.
Yes. Yeah. And, we put so much of that pressure on ourselves. You mentioned, like society's views about success and failure and things of that nature. And we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And what, like you said earlier, what we may view as a failure, it's really not a failure. It might be a minor setback. It might be a little off course, but definitely not a failure. Right. And I think, like you said earlier, we need to give ourselves that space and that permission to step back if we need to regroup. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And when dealing with survivors of sexual assault, do you think building resilience is important? Is it important while doing that type of work?
I think it's more so about allowing them the space to say, whatever you're feeling, whatever you feel right now, that's okay. There's no definition of what you should be feeling right now, and there's no time period. Like, this is the time period from a legal standpoint, from our standpoint of when things will happen. But if you're not prepared, like if you don't feel like you're prepared to handle that, that's okay. You know? It's more about allowing them to have that room to breathe and just knowing, like, you will get through this. I know, it's difficult now, but you will get through it, and you'll get through it on your own time. And that's that's how you'll become resilient, and you will become resilient.
Yeah. And I know from working with several sexual assault survivors, that's really hard for them. Especially if we're talking about an assault that happened many years ago. They feel like, well, why am I not over it? Why am I still being triggered? And things of that nature. So I think as advocates, it's very important for us to remind them of the things that you just talked about. It's okay to be where you are. If you're not as far along as you thought that you should be, then that's perfectly fine. But giving them that space in order to grow how they need to grow, but just know that we are supporting them. And welcome back, Katrina.
Thank you.
We were just talking about is building resilience important when working with survivors of sexual assault?
I would definitely agree that it is majorly important, because how can we as advocates work with victim survivors of sexual assault who we're trying to implement some skills and some coping mechanisms on building their resilience if we are not where we need to be.
Yeah.
And I think the number one thing for me is I have over the last couple of years had to learn to basically define what building resilience was. For me, it's always been, again, I push through. That's what I do. I push through. But after coming over and realizing that there is a definition for what it is that I've been doing. I haven't just been pushing through. I've been building from the foundation, right? And so in order for me to go and meet someone else at their need, I have to be at a place where even if I'm not completely there, I need to have put in the work to understand what it's like and what I see in others when they are into need of building their resilience and me assisting them in that process.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And when we're talking about building resistance, working with victim survivors as advocates, I will say this, that many advocates are victim or survivors themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So then you're talking about someone who is also a survivor of sexual assault and an advocate. So is there a special layer of resilience, or what do you ladies think about that? Because that does happen.
I can say that there definitely is a different level. And again, Kelsey, I have been on the side where I've been in this last 2 years, I've been in a growth process. And so, it's one thing we talk about building resilience being something that you have to work towards. Well, there's a difference between the resilience in a victim survivor and a victim advocate who is also a victim survivor.
Yeah.
And so I have to learn how to look through both sets of lenses. And I didn't actually know that was a part of the process. I'm thinking well, honestly, I was thinking in a rather shallow mindset, like everyone is where I am. And that is so not true. The people that we work with, victim advocates are human. We are human people, number one. And number two, we all have our own sets of trauma.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what trauma may look like for one person may not be the same for the next person. But when it comes to a victim advocate who happens to be a victim of sexual assault, it definitely is a whole different caliber. It brings in a whole nother set of components to what building, and it also helps me to look at things in a different perspective. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, you said earlier that I'm seasoned and I've brought in a few years, but I'm still in the learning process. Yeah. And that's one thing I love about being a victim advocate. You've never arrived, right? You're always at a place where you should be able to build from where you are. And I totally agree. And I can say one thing about myself, I see that. Right. I've not arrived. I'm constantly in a learning phase. And I think once a person realizes that, then they realize that there's more growth, there's room for growth. And it helps to just kind of work through some of your resilience when you're building. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think that even more that helps our victim survivors. That helps them relate, to know that, we are your advocates, but there are quite a few of us, doing this work that have also experienced sexual trauma or some level of trauma on our own. And, it lets them know that you're not by yourself. Exactly.
You're not alone. And there are some people in this field that have been where you are. And I think that really helps them to kind of come into themselves and help them to accept the resources that we are giving them as well. Anna, you want to add?
Yeah, totally. Just echoing everything that you ladies have said. I think it just having that experience and having those traumas that everybody has, it adds a level of understanding when you're talking to these women or these victim survivors in general that you might not otherwise have. And it's just that second level of empathy, that second layer of empathy where you can understand the feelings. And even if you wouldn't react that way, that's okay. It kind of creates this judgment-free zone because the trauma that they're experiencing. You kind of just it gives you that ease with them, I would say. And also, I loved what you said about continually learning, because that's exactly every time I go in or I talk with victim survivors, the experiences, no matter what it is, I always come back reflecting, and I just feel like I'm gaining so much in terms of just experience and really learning from them as much as I can provide resources to them. They're also teaching me so much about trauma responses and just resilience, because what they're going through in and of itself is something that most people can't even imagine. And so
I totally agree with that as well. And I don't think they realize how much they teach us.
No, not at all.
We're their advocate, but they are our teachers. So I don't think they realize how much even though it's out of a very unfortunate circumstance, they bring a lot of joy and purpose to our lives. So
I was reading this article by this professor who's talking about bolstering resilience. And his title is Benefiting from the Lessons Learned. And when I think about that and I put it into like more of a Katrina mindset, if you will, it's like when you can actually benefit or learn from some of the lessons and not necessarily blame yourself for some of the things that you're going through in order to get you where you want to be. It's again, it's just like building a house, right? You've got to start with the foundation, and then you've got some different things that you need to do. But if that foundation is not leveled off, then no matter what you put on top of it, it's still going to kind of be in an angle, and it's and everything is just going to. So if we could just learn how to build from the lessons that we go through and realize that it's not something that is punitive. It's not something that, has just really destroyed us. But if we can actually put that in our mindset, then what we do is when we start working with victim survivors, whether they be victim advocates or just victim survivors, it helps us to understand more so the lessons that we've learned so that we can kind of help to understand what the next person is going through. It's just about being transparent, I think. And not being afraid to be transparent.
I totally agree with that. Absolutely. And so, while we're talking about working with victim survivors, and then, we got this time of year that's here. I've heard a lot of staff and a lot of other advocates talk about mindfulness at this time. So how does that resonate with you ladies? Mindfulness. What do y'all think? Because Katrina, you've said it. I think Laurie has said it. A couple of people have mentioned mindfulness. So how does that sit with you ladies?
I know personally, I have been very big on mindfulness since I was a dance major in college, and we devoted portions of our class to mindfulness and mindfulness exercises. And even med school, they actually have a lot of activities geared towards our own mindfulness and making sure that we're always reflective. And for me, that really is just being reflective and really reflecting on, for personally, how far that I've come. You know, if I'm thinking about up to this point, what all the trials that have been, as particularly in the past 2 years that we've all been through, and just we're on the other side. It seems like we're getting to the other side of it, and we've really, you know, we've pushed through, as I think the whole world has had to push through in this time, and just really reflecting on that and giving myself room to breathe. It's just having that exhale, like, I'm here, you know.
Yeah.
We're here.
Right.
We can do something, you know.
Yeah.
And I think being present for one another, not necessarily, but just being present, knowing that, Anna, I've got your back, Kelsey, I've got your back, you know, and that what I like to reflect on may not be the same thing that you are dealing with, but I could definitely, in having a conversation, listening to what you say puts me back into that reflective mode where I am mindful and I remember that we're not alone in this, right?
Yeah.
Although a lot of us feel like we are, that would be the key takeaway for this particular segment, that you're not alone. We all have done the work or started the work, and although we may go backwards a step or two, it's still just being a work in progress. And as we sit down and we reflect on the different things that we've gone through and how we've made it through to the next step, it helps us to be, again, more mindful of the next person that may go through something. And it may be a little bit different, but in the end, it's one common goal, right? And that goal is to move forward, not stay stuck in whatever it is that we are dealing with, whatever that trauma is, whatever, you know, it looks like for one person. You're not alone, and you don't have to stay stuck. Right.
And I think what's coming up for me, since we're talking about mindfulness, being present in the moment, just being, and you know, I told some coworkers and friends the other day, I know I sound like a broken record, but just being mindful about where you are, what you have, just being grateful, because there have been so many things that have transpired this last, like 18 months or so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If we can just stop and breathe and just be present in the moment, I think that would help a lot of people. If we can, go ahead.
You said something, Kelsey. I'm sorry, but see, you do this to me, and I'm just going to go ahead and call you out on it. But when you talk about breathing, that resonates with me, and Anna, you did as well. I remember having a conversation with someone before, and I said, you know, I just want to learn how to breathe. And the person that I was talking to was like, well, just look at a baby. Just think about, and I mean, I was serious. Like I was inhaling and exhaling, but I wasn't doing the right component because I felt like I was just smothering, but I wasn't breathing correctly. And now that I know how to breathe and the importance of inhaling and exhaling, when we talk about inhaling in good oxygen and releasing that negativity, that speaks volume. Absolutely. When you just take the time to just breathe. And then acknowledge that, you know, hey, we don't all get it right the first time. We don't always remember how to breathe, but not being afraid to go back and learn the major components or the, you know,
Yeah.
You say that you're never too old to learn. Well, we're never too old to say we don't know and then try to start over and learn and do better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. Yeah.
You did it.
But yeah, just taking the time. You know, we beat ourselves up, you know, we should be this, we should be that. Regrets we may have, all of the stuff on our list that we didn't get a chance to mark off, you know, all of the stuff. All of the stuff that causes us to have our shoulders, you know, we're like this by the end of the day. We're kind of like a turtle whose head is barely sticking out. We're stressed. I mean, just anything that you can think of. But if we can just learn how to just be present in the moment and just be thankful and grateful at that moment, I think we would start to see some things change.
You're right. We tend to just get so caught up or bogged down in being there for everyone, you know, and sometimes we fail to realize that we're ineffective.
Yeah.
So when you go back and you learn how to breathe, you know, and you reflect on some of those things, then you will say something like, wow, I've been doing all of this for everybody else and I have not done the work myself.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So if we can just be present for ourselves first, then we'll be able to be present for others.
Yes. Agree 1000%.
Yep.
Yeah. You have something else you want to add, Anna?
Just again, echoing it all, and just realizing, you know, if I'm not taking care of me, I can't take care of anybody else.
That's right.
So just you know, it's kind of, people think that it's selfish to prioritize yourself. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves. It is not selfish.
No,
it is not selfish. It is basic taking care of you. It's a basic need that you just need to take care of you, both physically and mentally. And if you take care of you, then you can take care of other people.
Yeah.
Because if you're just breaking yourself down, you're ineffective, as you say, and you can't do anything, and you are not worth that sacrifice.
No.
Really just prioritize that. Yeah.
Right. And so that leads us basically into our wrap up. Anna, you talked about taking care of you, and that's not being selfish. So what are some things that you guys, and you know, if there's anyone in our audience today who's watching, who's listening, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We will make sure that we do our best to acknowledge those. But ladies, you know, what pointers could we give for taking care of yourself? Especially if you are working with people who have been traumatized, or you yourself have been traumatized. What are some things that we can do to take care of us?
Ooh, I got a whole list. But Anna, I'm not going to take over this part of the conversation. I'm going to let you start because you are fresh out of school or on a break right now. So I'm gonna let you go first.
When I think of self-care, it's really just listening to my body and my mind and doing whatever I need. So if that means laying on the couch for a couple hours, just vegging out, as I like to say, that's what I do. If you like to journal, if journaling is what really, you know, helps you reflect, helps you get your emotions and everything out, journal by all means. If you want to go treat yourself to like a milkshake or something, it's totally okay.
I'm all for that.
Yep. Me too. And just really, you know, if I feel like mentally and physically I need to do these things, then that's what I need to do. You know, I need to take a few hours out of the day and take care of myself. And I often find that when I take those hours, I get everything on my list done faster than I would have otherwise.
Yeah.
Because I've taken care of me first.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I like that. It's important to be present for ourselves first. And sometimes, for me, self-care can be something like just sitting still with my eyes closed, taking my glasses off, and just not thinking about anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be this extravagant type, you know, gift to yourself. It can be something as just closing your eyes and taking the moment to listen to either the birds or pure silence, the vent from the air coming out of the air conditioning, or the heat coming from, feeling the heat on your face. It's a wonderful thing to just basically do nothing. Like you said, Anna, just veg out on nothing, and not feeling guilty about doing nothing.
And doing nothing is actually a thing. That's why it has thing at the end, right?
It is.
It is actually a thing. If somebody asks you what you're doing this weekend and you tell them nothing, that is actually a thing.
It is. Yeah. And it's a rewarding thing,
And it's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I think a lot of people, really feel like that they've just got to do something. And my son's number one, my youngest son, is just like, well, Mom, you mean to tell me you're just sitting there doing nothing?
Absolutely. It's a thing.
I was.
Right. But, the work that we're doing, we have to make sure that we are always willing to take care of ourselves. And that not to feel guilty about it or anything like that. So I think that is very important. And, I want to give a special shout out to all of our therapists at CAC, FCC, those who take care of all of our clients. Just take this moment to tell them thank you for what they do.
Absolutely.
Because, you're listening to people's, the intimate parts of their lives all day. And so I'm really hoping that they are taking the time to really take care of themselves, because they have a heart. That's rough to hear that about that trauma over and over again. So I'm really hoping that they are taking really, really good care of themselves, and just take this moment to thank all of the therapists and all of our advocates. Wherever they may be, to let you know that, we are advocates that are supporting each other, and to make sure that you are taking good care of yourself. Because, walking in your purpose does not mean that you have to forget about yourself.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And doing a check-in, Kelsey.
Yeah.
That's something that has become a priority of mine. Just doing a check-in I may not be able to reach everybody every day, but definitely not being afraid to reach out and do a check-in. And people can really benefit from that, because a lot of times we're drowning, and we don't even realize that that's what we're doing. But to have someone to ring the phone or send a text, or, peek their head in through the door just to check in, can really be that saving grace for myself, to say, hey, you need to get up and take a walk, or you need to get up and just look up and just acknowledge that someone is doing a check-in.
Right. Yeah.
Just being present for ourselves first, and then for others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, all right. We are going to go ahead and wrap it up, ladies. Again, thank you so much. This has been such a great discussion. I think much needed. And for those of you who are viewing this roundtable discussion now, or who may see it later, if you have been a victim of sexual violence, or someone very close to you has been a victim of sexual violence, it could be a sibling, could be one of your children, a coworker, friend, does not matter who. If you know that they need support and they might need someone to talk to, our number here at the Rape Crisis Center is 473-7273. And that line is available 24/7. So please do not hesitate to reach out if you need someone to advocate for you. So, all right, Miss Anna and Katrina, thank you again. And to those of you who are out there listening, till next time, take good care.